Greetings, fellow noob. Today we're talking about turnbinds. I'll quickly explain what they are, why you should use them, and then present 3 different ways to set them up. Before we get into it, a quick disclaimer. This guide only covers turnbinds in CSS and Momentum Mod. In other games, like CS2, turnbinds may or do work differently. Alright, what is a turnbind? A turnbind makes you turn left or right by pressing a button instead of moving your mouse. That's pretty much it. Turnbinds are just a different way to turn, but otherwise work exactly the same as turning with your mouse. Turnbinds also don't replace mouse movement. If you press a turnbind and move your mouse, both gets added together. How quickly a turnbind makes you spin is defined by a value called Yawspeed, and it can be changed. We'll come back to that later. Why are turnbinds useful? The typical use case for a turnbind is to perform a spin that would be too fast or too long to do with your mouse. But there's other reasons why turnbinds are useful. One is that turnbinds create perfectly even turns, so they can make you smoother. And they're also convenient. Once you get used to them, pressing a button is often just less effort than moving your mouse. Turnbinds are great for lazy little surfers like me. Turnbinds aren't some crazy hack or niche gadget. Most surf maps, especially tier 3 and above, are designed with turnbinds in mind. The map maker basically assumes you are using some sort of turnbind. And even with some lower tier maps, the idea of playing them without turnbinds will soon sound like needless torture once you've grown used to them. Okay, how do you set up a turnbind? First off, you'll have to enable the console if you haven't done so yet. In CSS, go to Options, Keyboard, Advanced, and make a checkmark. If enabling the console doesn't work this way, you may have to enable the console manually in Steam settings. Right-click CSS in your Steam library, go to Properties, General, and type -console in the launch options. In Momentum Mod, things are more straightforward. Just make sure Console Enable is turned on and set a keybind to open it in the settings. Okay, now to actually set up our turnbinds. The most basic turnbinds are these two. That's it, one key to turn right and one to turn left. But you may very well ask, which key? People have all sorts of different solutions. The most common one, I think, is to use Q and E. I don't like that at all because I don't want to use my middle finger or let go of A or D to press my turnbind. Another common option that I prefer is to use mouse buttons, like side buttons or even the left and right mouse buttons. But in the end, this really is just personal preference. Experiment and do whatever feels right to you. Sometimes you simply have to follow your heart. Next, let's talk about Yawspeed. Yawspeed is the rate at which you turn in degrees per second. The default value is 210. It's not a bad value for doing relatively fast spins in Surf, but of course, this value can be changed. In Momentum Mod, you can do that directly in the options, and in both Momentum Mod and CSS, it can be done via the console with the command cl_yawspeed and then the number. So what's the best yaw speed? How fast or slow should your turnbind be? The right answer is that there is no right answer. And it's not just because it's personal preference. It also depends a lot on the map. On a super smooth map like Surf Tendies, having a very slow turnbind for long, wide spins is super useful. But that doesn't help you at all on a map that has a fast spinny drop like Surf Tomb. But what if you want both? What if you want a slow turnbind and a fast turnbind on the same map without going into console and changing the yaw speed? You can't go into the console while you're playing the map. That's where 2 other ways to set up turnbinds come into play, and things get a little more advanced. The first alternative is a togglebind, and this one's relatively well known. Basically, you assign another keybind to toggle between different yaw speeds. This works fine for most people, but when I started using it, I really disliked it. I just hated having to remember what yaw speed I'm on currently. So I tinkered around a little bit and came up with a third way. To set up one turnbind, enter these 3 lines into console. This is an alias bind, which are commonly used for other things like null binds, so it's nothing too fancy actually. The name can be whatever you want, as long as it's the same in all three cases. The number is the Yawspeed and the key, well, the key you want. Note the plus and minus signs, those are important. So what in all hell does this do? It basically combines setting a Yawspeed with doing a turn. When you press the key, it will define the Yawspeed and make you turn at the same time. So what we can do now is assign a different button with a turnbind that uses a different Yawspeed. Now my right mouse button makes me turn right with 60 Yawspeed, and one of my side mouse buttons makes me turn right with 300 Yawspeed. The sky is the limit, you can have as many different turnbinds as you have buttons. Get foot pedals and assign turnbinds to them, who knows, maybe it's a legit tech. Of course, this method does have some downsides. First, it's just extra buttons. To me that doesn't matter because I played too much WoW to care about a few extra keybinds, but a lot of people simply don't like adding extra buttons. The other downside is that changing your turnbinds is just a lot more work with all those console commands. But there's a well-known solution, setting up an autoexec.cfg. Autoexec.cfgs are used for tons of different things. They're basically console commands that your game runs the moment it's launched, like default options basically. They work for both CSS and Momentum Mod. First, you want to find the correct folder. In this folder, create a text document and name it autoexec.cfg. Open it in the text editor and now simply put everything you'd normally enter in the console in here. Now you can save as many versions of our little alias turnbind as you want. If you want to change the turnbind in-game, all you need to do is to assign the proper name to the key. And that's it. All you need to know, and probably a little more about turnbinds. If you know something about turnbinds I didn't mention, write it in the comments. If the video helped you, leave a like and consider subscribing. See ya!